Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I'm glad you could join me for this journey. And now, let's begin.
I never thought I would be telling this story. Not because I'm ashamed, I have nothing to be ashamed of, but because I never imagined my life could fall apart so completely in just a few weeks. My name is Michael Harrison. 2 months ago, I had what most would call a perfect life. A beautiful wife named Elizabeth, 2 amazing kids, Lily, 14, and Josh, 11. A thriving marketing firm in downtown Chicago, and a house in the suburbs that we spent years turning into our dream home. We were married for 16 years. 16 years of building a life together, of morning kisses, family vacations, and promises whispered in the dark. Or so I thought. It was a Tuesday evening when everything changed. I remember, because I had just closed a big deal with a new client, and I was planning to surprise Elizabeth with tickets to Aruba for our upcoming anniversary. She was away on what she told me was a 3-day marketing conference in Detroit. The kids were at my sister's for the night, and I was enjoying a rare, quiet evening, reviewing some client files at the kitchen island. The doorbell rang at 9:47 p.m. I know the exact time because I looked at my watch, wondering who could be visiting so late. 2 police officers stood on my doorstep, their expressions grim. "Mr. Harrison?" asked the taller one. "Yes," I replied, my stomach instantly dropping. "I'm Officer Williams, and this is Officer Daniels. May we come in? It's about your wife, Elizabeth." The world seemed to slow down as they told me Elizabeth was at Northwestern Memorial Hospital. She had been found badly injured in a hotel room in Chicago, not Detroit, after what they described as a violent altercation. "But that's impossible," I said, my voice sounding distant even to my own ears. "She's at a conference in Detroit." The officers exchanged a look I would come to recognize all too well in the days that followed. That mix of pity and discomfort that comes from knowing something terrible that you don't yet know. "Sir, we believe it's best if you come to the hospital. The doctors can explain her condition, and there are some other matters to discuss." I grabbed my keys and wallet, my hands moving automatically while my mind raced frantically. What hotel in Chicago? Why wasn't she in Detroit? Was she going to be okay? The ride to the hospital was a blur. Officer Williams drove while I sat in the passenger seat clutching my phone and trying to process what was happening. I called my sister, asked her to keep the kids overnight, told her there had been an accident, but I didn't have details yet. As we pulled into the hospital parking lot, I noticed my hands were shaking. Not exactly from fear, but from the adrenaline of realizing I was about to walk into something that would change everything. "Do you know what happened to her?" I asked Officer Williams as we rode the elevator to the 4th floor. He cleared his throat. "She was found in a hotel room at the Lakefront Hotel. There was an altercation with a male companion." The words hit me like a physical blow. A male companion. Not a colleague. Not a friend. A companion. At the hospital, a doctor met me in a separate consultation room. Dr. Reeves was a woman in her 50s with tired eyes and a soft voice. She explained that Elizabeth had multiple contusions, a broken wrist, and a concussion. "She's in stable condition," Dr. Reeves assured me, "but she's under heavy sedation right now. The injuries are serious but not life-threatening." I exhaled, relief washing over me. What happened? Was it a robbery? Was she in the wrong place at the wrong time? Another one of those looks flashed across her face. "Mr. Harrison, the police will need to discuss the circumstances with you. Detective Parker is waiting outside." Detective Parker was a stocky man with a close-cropped beard and eyes that seemed to miss nothing. He asked me to sit, and that's when my world truly began to crumble. "Mr. Harrison, your wife was found in a room at the Lakefront Hotel. She was registered there with a man named Thomas Blackwood. Do you know him?" I slowly shook my head. "No, I don't think so. He's listed as an employee at Sterling Marketing Group, the same company your wife works for." My mind processed the information with agonizing slowness. "She told me she was at a conference in Detroit." Detective Parker nodded, his expression cautious. "According to hotel staff, your wife and Mr. Blackwood have been regular guests over the past several months, typically on Tuesday and Thursday evenings." The words hit me like physical blows. Regular guests. Several months. Tuesday and Thursday nights. The nights Elizabeth had late client meetings or office functions. "What happened to her?" I managed to ask, my voice tight. "From what we've gathered, she and Mr. Blackwood had an altercation. He claims she told him she wanted to end their relationship. He became violent. A hotel guest in a neighboring room called security after hearing shouting and what sounded like furniture being thrown. I sat perfectly still, feeling the blood drain from my face. Where is he now? In custody. He's being charged with aggravated assault. The detective kept talking, explaining procedure and asking if I had questions, but I barely heard him. My mind raced through memories, reinterpreting moments I had never questioned. The late nights, the urgent work situations on weekends, the sudden business trips, the new lingerie I'd never seen her wear, the secretive text messages, the dwindling intimacy between us that I'd blamed on our busy schedules. I'd been completely, utterly blind. Can I see her? I interrupted whatever the detective was saying. He nodded. She's in room 412, but Mr. Harrison? He paused, seeming to choose his words carefully. She doesn't know we've contacted you yet. When she was briefly conscious, she gave the hospital her sister's name as her emergency contact. Another knife to the heart. Even in crisis, she had tried to hide it from me. I walked to room 412 in a state of emotional numbness. When I opened the door, the sight that greeted me nearly made me recoil. Elizabeth's face was swollen and bruised. Her right eye was completely shut. Her left wrist was in a cast, and various monitors beeped quietly beside her bed. This woman, this stranger, had been my wife for 16 years, the mother of my children, the person I trusted most in the world. I stood there for a long time, just watching her breathe. Anger, betrayal, worry, and confusion warred within me. Part of me wanted to scream at her, shake her awake, and demand answers. Another part wanted to turn around and never look back. But the biggest part of me needed to understand how our shared life could have been such a complete lie. A nurse came in to check Elizabeth's vitals, starting slightly when she saw me. "Are you family?" she asked. "I'm her husband," I replied, the words having a bitter taste. She gave me a sympathetic smile. "She'll probably sleep through the night with the medication she's on. You might want to go home and come back in the morning." I nodded, but knew I couldn't go home. Not to that house where every room, every piece of furniture, every photograph now felt like a prop in some elaborate lie. Instead, I went to an all-night cafe across from the hospital and ordered coffee. As the night dragged on, I made 3 decisions that would guide everything that followed. First, I would not break. Not now. Not ever. Elizabeth had taken enough from me. She would not take my dignity, too. Second, I would protect my children from as much pain as possible. But I would never lie to them. They deserved the truth, delivered with care, but without deception. Third, I would rebuild my life and come out stronger, with or without forgiveness in my heart. By morning, when I returned to the hospital, a cold clarity had replaced the shock. I was not there as a concerned husband, but as a man demanding answers. Elizabeth was awake when I entered her room. Her good eye widened in shock, then immediately filled with tears. "Michael," she whispered, her voice. "I'm so sorry." I stood at the foot of her bed, keeping my distance. "Sorry for which part, Elizabeth? For cheating on me for months? For lying about where you were? Or for getting caught?" She flinched as if I'd struck her. "Please, Michael, it's not what you think." I laughed, a harsh sound that surprised even me. "Really? Because I think you were sleeping with your colleague Thomas, lying to my face. I think you were betraying our marriage, our family, and everything we built together. Please tell me which part I have wrong." Tears streamed down her face, tracing paths through the light makeup someone, probably her sister, had applied over her bruises. I made a terrible mistake. I got into something that never should have happened, but I love you and the kids more than anything. Thomas means nothing to me. He meant enough for you to risk our entire life together, I replied, my voice steady despite the rage boiling inside me. He meant enough for you to lie to me repeatedly, to create elaborate stories about conferences and meetings. He meant enough for you to check into hotels with him while I was at home, helping Josh with his science project and telling him Mommy was working hard at a conference. She tried to reach for me with her good hand, but I stepped back. Michael, please. I know I've hurt you terribly, but this isn't me, Thomas. He made me feel special, wanted. Things between us had gotten so routine, so predictable. Stop. I cut her off, feeling physically ill. Don't you dare blame this on our marriage. If you were unhappy, you could have talked to me. We could have gone to counseling. You could have done 1,000 things before resorting to an affair. He hurt me, Michael, she whispered, gesturing to her injuries, when I told him I was ending it, that I couldn't do it anymore. He lost control. Doesn't that show you I was trying to make it right? I looked at her. This woman I had once been sure I knew better than anyone else in the world. No, Elizabeth. It shows me you were trying to avoid consequences, and only after you were caught in a situation that spun out of your control. A nurse appeared in the doorway. Is everything all right in here? I nodded stiffly. I was just leaving. My wife needs her rest. As I turned to leave, Elizabeth called out to me, panic in her voice. Michael, please don't tell the children. Please let me come home and we can work through this together. I froze in the doorway, not looking back. They deserve better than lies, Elizabeth. And so do I. The drive home was when the reality truly caught up with me. How would I tell Lily and Josh that their mother had been living a double life? That the foundation of our family was built on deceit? The thought of their pain made my hands clench the steering wheel so hard, my knuckles turned white. When I got home, I found my sister Katie waiting for me. She had brought the kids back from her house, but had only told them their mother had been in an accident. Their faces were anxious as they bombarded me with questions. Is Mom okay? What happened? When can we see her? I hugged them both tightly, then asked Katie to give us some privacy. The look on my face must have told her how serious it was, because she squeezed my shoulder and left without questions. I sat down with Lily and Josh on the living room couch, taking a deep breath before speaking. Mom is in the hospital, and physically, she's going to be okay, I began carefully. She has some injuries, a broken wrist, bruises, and a concussion, but she will recover. Relief flashed across their faces, but they sensed there was more. There's something else I need to tell you, and it's going to be hard to hear, I continued, my heart breaking for them. The reason Mom is in the hospital is complicated. She wasn't where she told us she would be. She was with another man, someone from her work. They've been secretly seeing each other for a while. Lily's face immediately crumpled, tears streaming down her cheeks. Josh looked confused, then angry, his young features hardening in a way an 11-year-old shouldn't. You mean she was cheating on you? He demanded, his voice cracking. I nodded, putting a hand on his shoulder. Yes, and that man hit her when she told him she wanted to end their relationship. So she was lying to all of us? Lily asked, her voice quiet. All those nights and trips she was with him. It seems that way, I replied, trying to hold back my own emotions for their sake. I hate her, Josh suddenly declared, jumping to his feet. I hate her for what she did to us. I gently pulled him back down. Josh, it's okay to be angry. I'm angry too. But hate is a heavy burden. Your mom made a terrible choice, but she is still your mom, and she still loves you both very much. Will you forgive her? Lily asked, her tear-filled eyes searching mine. Will everything go back to normal? The question hit me hard. I could give them false hope, tell them everything would be fine, but I had promised myself no more lies in this family. I don't know what will happen between your mom and me, I said honestly, but I know two things for sure. First, none of this is your fault. Not one bit. And second, no matter what happens, I will always be here for you both. We will get through this together. Josh hugged me, burying his face in my chest. Lily joined the hug, and we sat holding each other while they cried. I held back my own tears, determined to be their rock in this storm. That night, after they finally fell asleep, Lily only after I let her take one of my old t-shirts to sleep in, and Josh only after extracting a promise that he wouldn't have to see his mom until he was ready. I sat alone in my home office with a glass of bourbon. I didn't drink it. Instead, I stared at the amber liquid, thinking about drowning my pain, about how easy it would be to break. But it wouldn't help my children, and it certainly wouldn't help me. I poured the bourbon down the sink and made one more decision. I would learn everything. No more surprises, no more blindsides. I needed the full truth if I was ever going to move forward. The next morning I called James Reynolds, a private investigator a client had once recommended. I was straightforward about what I needed. I need to know everything about my wife's affair. How long it's been going on, where they went, what they did, who knew about it. I need hard evidence, not suspicions. James didn't ask why. He didn't offer platitudes or sympathy. He simply said, I'll need some basic information to start and a retainer. When can we meet? 3 days later, while Elizabeth was still in the hospital, now calling my phone constantly, leaving tearful voicemails begging me to answer, James delivered his first report. The relationship with Thomas Blackwood had lasted 7 months. Not several, as the detective had said. They met regularly at the Lakefront Hotel, but also at his apartment in Lincoln Park. They took weekend trips together to Wisconsin and Michigan, carefully disguised as work events or girls' trips with Elizabeth's friends. The evidence was meticulous and devastating. Credit card statements showing hotel payments, restaurant receipts for intimate dinners, cell phone logs with thousands of exchanges, though not the content. Even flight information for a weekend they spent in New York, during which Elizabeth had told me she was at a marketing retreat in Philadelphia. There were photographs, too. Elizabeth and Thomas entering a hotel together, holding hands in a park I didn't recognize, kissing in his car in the parking lot of her office building. Each image was like a knife, but I forced myself to look at every one. This was the reality I'd been unwilling to see. "There's more," James said, his voice cautious. "Do you want to know everything?" I nodded, bracing myself. "Based on interviews with hotel staff and some of your wife's colleagues? This isn't Blackwood's first workplace affair. He has a history of pursuing married women at the companies he works for. He's been at Sterling Marketing just over a year, and in that time, there are rumors of at least one other affair before your wife. The information should have made me feel better, knowing Elizabeth had been the victim of a practiced predator. But instead, it only raised more questions. Was she that easily seduced? Did our marriage mean so little to her?" "There's something else," James continued. "The night your wife was injured, she wasn't ending the relationship. According to a bartender I spoke with, they were arguing because Blackwood had been seen with another woman, a new account executive who started at Sterling last month. The revelation hit like a physical blow. Elizabeth had lied even about trying to end the affair. She wasn't hurt trying to do the right thing. She was hurt during a lover's quarrel over another woman. I thanked James, paid him, and asked him to keep digging. I wanted to know everything. Every lie, every deception, every person who might have known, and said nothing. That same day, Elizabeth's sister, Olivia, showed up at my door, unannounced. I hadn't spoken to her or any of Elizabeth's family since the incident. "Michael, we need to talk," she said, trying to step past me into the house. I blocked her entrance. "Whatever you want to say, you can say it here." Her eyes narrowed. "Elizabeth is being discharged tomorrow. She needs to come home to be with her family, to heal, both physically and emotionally." "This is no longer her home," I replied calmly. Olivia's face flushed with anger. "You can't be serious. After 16 years of marriage, you're throwing her out over one mistake." I laughed humorlessly. "One mistake. She had a 7-month affair, Olivia. She lied to me and our children countless times. She created elaborate stories to cover her deception. That's not one mistake. It's hundreds of deliberate choices. People make bad choices when they're unhappy," she countered. "Maybe if you had paid more attention to her—" "Stop right there," I cut her off, my voice dropping dangerously. "Don't you dare try to blame me for her actions. Elizabeth is a grown adult who made her own choices. She loves you, Michael. She made a terrible error in judgment, but she wants to make things right. Don't your marriage vows mean anything?" "For better or for worse. Those vows also included fidelity," I pointed out, "and respect and honesty, all of which she discarded for 7 months. Olivia's expression shifted to one of concern. "What about the children? They need their mother. They need truth and stability. Elizabeth destroyed both. And yes, they absolutely need their mother, but I will not force them to pretend everything is okay when it's not." "You were always cold, Michael," she spat. "Always so logical and controlled. Maybe that's why she sought out someone else who could show real emotion." The accusation stung, but I refused to show it. "You should leave, Olivia, and you can tell Elizabeth she can stay with you while we figure out the next steps legally." "Legally? You're already talking to lawyers?" "I will be," I confirmed, "and I suggest she do the same." After Olivia left, I stood on the porch for a long time, replaying her words. Had I been cold? Had I driven Elizabeth to seek comfort elsewhere? Doubts crept in, threatening the clarity I'd worked so hard to maintain. But then I remembered the photographs, the evidence of Elizabeth's calculated deception, and my resolve hardened. This wasn't about my failings as a husband. It was about Elizabeth's choices and their consequences. The next day, I received a call from Elizabeth's boss himself, Richard Sterling. I'd met him a few times at corporate events, always finding him professional, if somewhat detached. "Michael, I wanted to reach out personally regarding this terrible situation," he began, his voice grave. "First of all, to express my sincere regrets about what happened." "I appreciate that, Richard," I replied, wondering what his angle was. "I want you to know that Thomas Blackwood has been terminated. Immediately. We have a strict policy against workplace relationships, particularly between managers and their subordinates, which he repeatedly violated." This was news to me. Thomas was Elizabeth's manager. Yes, for the past year he's been the senior director of client services, overseeing her team. You didn't know? Another piece of the puzzle clicked into place. All those times Elizabeth had complained about her micromanaging boss, the late nights she claimed were required by her unreasonable superior, she had been talking about her lover. "We're also offering Elizabeth a generous severance package," Richard continued. "While her involvement also violates our policies, we recognize there was a power dynamic at play here, and we want to handle this situation with appropriate sensitivity." I could read between the lines. They were worried about a lawsuit, a PR nightmare if this became public. "I understand," I said, "and I appreciate your call." After the conversation, I contacted my lawyer, Samuel Whitaker. I had used Sam for business matters for years, but never for anything personal. He listened silently as I explained the situation, asking only occasional clarifying questions. "You have several options," he said when I finished. "None of them are particularly pleasant, I'm afraid." "I'm not looking for pleasant," I told him. "I'm looking for fair. In that case, the first step is to secure your finances. Joint accounts should be frozen or separated, credit cards canceled or limits lowered. You should immediately document all assets and liabilities." I had already begun that process, transferring half of our joint savings to a separate account in my name and keeping meticulous records of all transactions. Next, you need to decide if you want to pursue divorce or legal separation. Given what you've told me, you have grounds for a fault-based divorce in Illinois, which could potentially impact asset division in any support agreements. "What about the children?" I asked. "I want primary custody." Sam's expression became cautious. "That's more complicated. Courts generally prefer joint custody arrangements unless there's evidence one parent is unfit. While infidelity is grounds for divorce, it doesn't automatically make someone an unfit parent in the eyes of the law." I nodded, absorbing this unwelcome reality. "What about Sterling Marketing? Do I have any recourse against them? Their senior employee was having an affair with his married subordinate. Workplace sexual harassment laws might come into play, especially with the power dynamic between them, but that would be Elizabeth's claim, not yours. Unless what? Unless you could prove their negligence directly impacted you. For instance, if they knew about the relationship and didn't address it, allowing it to continue and ultimately causing you harm. But that's a difficult case. I thought of the rumors James had mentioned, of Thomas's history of workplace affairs, if the company had known and done nothing. "I'll think about it," I told Sam. "For now, let's focus on protecting my interests and the children's." By the time Elizabeth was discharged from the hospital, I had a temporary plan in place. I had taken a leave of absence from work to be with the kids. I had changed the locks on the house. I'd informed the children's school of the situation, asking them to be aware of any behavioral changes and to contact me directly with any concerns. Elizabeth moved in with Olivia, as I had suggested. The day after her discharge, she came to the house while the kids were at school, her face still bruised but healing, her wrist in a cast. "I need to get some of my things," she said, her voice quiet. "I packed a suitcase with clothes and personal items," I replied, nodding toward the large suitcase I had placed by the door. "Anything else you need, you can request through Sam Whitaker. He's my lawyer." Her face twisted. "Michael, please. Can't we at least talk? I made a terrible mistake, but I love you. I love our family. We can work through this." "There is no us anymore, Elizabeth," I said, surprised at how calm I felt. "You destroyed that over 7 months of lies and infidelity." "People recover from affairs," she insisted. "Marriages survive crises like this all the time." "Some do," I acknowledged. "But I don't think ours will. Because it's not just the affair, Elizabeth. It's the magnitude of the deception. It's the fact that you were sleeping with your boss while complaining to me about him. It's the trips you took together while I stayed home with our children. It's the fact that you weren't even trying to end things with him. You were fighting because he was cheating on you." Her eyes widened in shock. "How did you—" "I know everything," I cut her off. "Every hotel stay, every weekend trip, every lie you told me and the children. And I know you were only caught because Thomas started seeing someone else, and you confronted him about it." Tears streamed down her face. "That's not true." I was ending it. I told him it was over. "Stop lying," I said, my voice finally betraying some emotion. "Even now when you're caught, when there's proof of what really happened, you're still lying." "The children," she said, changing tactics. "They need me. You can't keep me from my children." "I'm not keeping you from them. Josh doesn't want to see you right now. Lily is confused and hurt. When they're ready, we'll arrange visits, but it will be on their terms, not yours." She stared at me, her expression hardening slightly. "You've turned them against me." "No, Elizabeth. You did that yourself when you decided your affair was more important than your family's trust." Before she could respond, a car pulled into the driveway. Thomas Blackwood got out looking awkward but determined. My blood ran cold at the sight of him. This was the man who had slept with my wife, who had touched her body with his hands, who had shared intimate moments that were supposed to belong only to me. This was also the man who had beaten her badly enough to put her in the hospital. "What the hell is he doing here?" I demanded, instinctively stepping forward to place myself between Elizabeth and Thomas. "I asked him to come," Elizabeth admitted. "I thought if we both talked to you, explained things." "Explained things," I repeated with disbelief. What could he possibly explain that would change anything? Thomas approached, his hands slightly raised as if in surrender. "Mr. Harrison, I know you have every reason to hate me." "Damn right I do." I cut him off. "You slept with my wife for 7 months, lied to her about seeing other women, and then beat her when she confronted you? Give me one good reason why I shouldn't put you in the hospital right now." He flinched at my words. "It wasn't like that. I never meant to hurt her. Things just got out of hand." "Things got out of hand," I repeated flatly. "That's your explanation for my wife's broken wrist and concussion." "Michael, please," Elizabeth interjected. "We're just trying to make things right." I looked between them, suddenly realizing, "You're back together, aren't you? After everything, after he put you in the hospital, you took him back." Elizabeth's silence was confirmation enough. I laughed, a bitter sound that seemed to surprise all three of us. "Unbelievable. You know what? You deserve each other. 2 liars playing games with people's lives." Thomas stepped forward. "Look, I love Elizabeth. What happened between us was wrong. The connection, not just the incident. We both know that, but we want to move forward honestly now." "Honestly," I repeated. "You wouldn't recognize honesty if it hit you in the face, which, by the way, I'm restraining myself from doing right now." Thomas's face darkened. He took another step toward me, his body tensing. "You think you're better than me, Harrison? With your perfect life and your moral high ground. You have no idea what there is between me and Elizabeth." Something in me snapped. Before I could think, my fist connected with his jaw, sending him staggering backward. The pain that shot through my hand was nothing compared to the satisfaction of seeing him sprawled on my driveway. "Get off my property," I said, my voice deadly calm. "Both of you." Thomas scrambled to his feet, holding his jaw. For a moment I thought he might retaliate, but Elizabeth grabbed his arm. "Come on, Thomas, this isn't helping." I turned to Elizabeth. "I am still the mother of your children," she said, a note of defiance entering her voice. "You can't just erase me from their lives." "I never said I would. But you need to understand something, both of you. This little reconciliation you've got going, it changes nothing. I am still filing for divorce. I am still seeking primary custody. And I'm still going to make sure everyone knows what kind of people you are." I walked inside and closed the door. And through the window I watched Elizabeth grab the suitcase, say something angry to Thomas, and then get into his car. They drove away, leaving me alone in the house that had once been filled with the family I thought was happy. That night, when Lily and Josh got home from their after-school activities, I sat them down again. "Your mom came by today to pick up some of her things," I told them. "Did she ask about us?" Lily asked, her voice quiet. "Yes, she did. She misses you both very much and wants to see you when you're ready." Josh's face hardened. "I'm not ready. I don't know if I'll ever be ready." I put an arm around his shoulders. "That's okay, buddy. No one is going to make you see her until you want to." "Is she coming home?" Lily asked. I took a deep breath. "No, sweetheart. Your mom and I are going to get a divorce. That means we won't be married anymore, and we won't live together." Lily's eyes filled with tears, but she nodded, as if she'd been expecting that answer. Josh pressed against me, his body tense. There's something else you should know, I continued, deciding they deserved the full truth. The man your mom was seeing, Thomas, he was at the house today too. The guy who hit her? Josh asked, his voice rising. Why would she be with him after he did that to her? I chose my words carefully. Sometimes adults make complicated choices that are hard to understand. Your mom and Thomas apparently decided to continue their relationship. That sucks, Josh declared. What is, I replied. But here's what I want you both to remember. None of this is your fault, not one bit. And nothing that happens changes how much your mom and I love you. But everything's changing, Lily said, tears now streaming down her face. Our whole family is broken. I pulled her closer. Some things change, yes, but my love for you doesn't. My commitment to being the best father I can be doesn't. We're still a family, just a different kind than before. I held my children as they digested this new reality, wondering how we had arrived at this point and where we would go from here. The next few weeks were a blur of legal meetings, therapy appointments for the kids, and attempts to maintain some semblance of normalcy. Elizabeth made several attempts to see the children, but Josh remained adamant in his refusal, and Lily was hesitant, agreeing only to a supervised lunch at a restaurant. I didn't attend that lunch, arranging for my sister Katie to accompany Lily instead. When they returned, Lily was quiet and withdrawn. How did it go? I asked softly after Katie had left. Lily shrugged, pulling at a loose thread on her sweater. It was weird. Mom cried the whole time and kept saying how much she missed us. She had Thomas with her, even though Aunt Katie told her not to bring him. My jaw clenched. Thomas was there. That wasn't the arrangement. He waited in the car mostly, but he came in at the end to say hi. Lily's expression was troubled. He tried to act all nice, telling me how much Mom talks about me and Josh. I didn't like it. I took a deep breath, suppressing my anger. I'm sorry that happened, Lily. It won't happen again. Mom said she's going to fight for us, Lily continued, her voice small. She said you're turning us against her, and she won't let you keep us from her. The words sent a chill down my spine. Not because I was afraid of losing custody, I was confident in my lawyer and the evidence we had gathered, but because Elizabeth was clearly willing to subject the children to a messy custody battle rather than respect their feelings. Your mom loves you, I said carefully, and she's in a lot of pain right now. Sometimes when people are hurting, they say things they don't mean. Lily looked at me, her eyes wise beyond her years. I think she meant it, Dad. The next day, I was served with legal papers informing me that Elizabeth was contesting my request for primary custody with one of her own, alleging that I was alienating the children from her and creating a hostile environment. She was also seeking half of my business assets, claiming she had significantly contributed to my success through her support over the years. Sam called shortly after the papers arrived. This is just an opening salvo, he assured me. She doesn't have a strong case for primary custody, especially with the evidence of her affair and her continued relationship with the man who assaulted her. As for the business assets, we can demonstrate your company was established before the marriage and maintained separately. What about the alienation claim? I asked. It's standard in cases like these, Sam explained, but the children are old enough that the court will take their preferences into account, especially Josh's. The fact that you've already enrolled them in therapy and are following professional recommendations for handling the situation will work in your favor. Despite Sam's assurances, the legal battle grew uglier. Elizabeth's lawyer, a sharp-tongued woman named Victoria Winters, painted me as an emotionally detached workaholic who had driven Elizabeth to seek comfort elsewhere. She presented affidavits from Elizabeth's friends and family members, all attesting to my alleged coldness and neglect. In response, Sam gathered statements from my friends, colleagues, and even the children's teachers, all attesting to my involvement in the children's lives and my reputation as a dedicated father. We also submitted the private investigator's report complete with photographs and detailed timelines of Elizabeth's deception. The most painful moment came when Josh and Lily were interviewed by a court-appointed guardian ad litem, whose job was to represent their best interests in the custody process. Both children spoke openly about their feelings. Josh's anger, Lily's confusion and pain, both expressed a desire to live primarily with me, though Lily said she would be willing to see her mother regularly under certain conditions. As the legal battle dragged on, consuming time and emotional energy, I found myself struggling to maintain the strength I had promised my children. Late at night, after they had fallen asleep, I would sit in my office, looking at old family photographs and wondering how something that had seemed so perfect could disintegrate so completely. It was during one such moment of reflection that I received a call from an unknown number. Mr. Harrison, this is Sarah Mitchell. I used to work at Sterling Marketing with your wife. I didn't recognize the name at first. "How can I help you, Ms. Mitchell?" "Actually, I think I can help you," she replied. "I left Sterling 6 months ago, but I was there when Thomas Blackwood was hired. I think there's something you should know." Sarah explained that Thomas had been fired from a previous job for inappropriate relationships with married colleagues. Sterling Marketing had known about it. It had come up in his background check, but they hired him anyway because of his impressive client portfolio. "Richard Sterling knew?" I asked, remembering my conversation with Elizabeth's boss. "Not just knew," Sarah confirmed. "He explicitly told HR to ignore the red flags because Thomas was bringing over a major pharmaceutical client. This was exactly the kind of negligence Sam had mentioned that could give us leverage. Would you be willing to make a statement about this? Officially for the court?" A pause. "That's why I'm calling. I've been following your case. News travels fast in the industry. What happened to your family was wrong, and Sterling Marketing's hands aren't clean." The next day, I forwarded Sarah's statement to Sam, who immediately recognized its significance. "This changes things," he said. "Now we have evidence that Sterling Marketing knowingly hired someone with a history of sexual misconduct in the workplace, putting your wife and other employees at risk. We can add the company to your suit, arguing their negligence contributed to the destruction of your marriage." It was a turning point in the case. Once Sterling Marketing was named in the lawsuit, their lawyers immediately contacted us, seeking a private settlement. They offered a substantial sum in exchange for a non-disclosure agreement and the removal of the company from the suit. After careful consideration and discussion with Sam, I accepted the settlement, not for the money, but for the vindication it represented. The company's willingness to pay was an admission of guilt, an acknowledgement that they had played a role in the destruction of my family. News of the settlement reached Elizabeth and Thomas quickly. The next day, I received a tearful call from Elizabeth. "How could you do this?" she demanded. "Sterling Marketing is firing Thomas because of your lawsuit. They say he's a liability now." "Actions have consequences," I replied simply. "His, yours, and the company's." "You are systematically destroying everything in my life," she accused. "First our marriage, then my relationship with my children, now my career and Thomas." The accusation was so backwards, so detached from reality, that I actually laughed. "Elizabeth, listen to yourself. You destroyed our marriage with your affair. You damaged your relationship with the children by betraying their trust. You jeopardized your career by sleeping with your boss. None of that was my doing." "You never loved me," she said bitterly. "Not really. If you had, you would have fought for our marriage instead of throwing it away." "I loved you more than you will ever know," I corrected her, my voice firm despite the pain her words caused. "I love the woman I thought you were, but that person doesn't exist. And I respect myself too much to fight for a lie." After the conversation, I felt a strange sense of closure. Elizabeth's inability to take responsibility for her actions confirmed that I was making the right decision by moving forward without her. The custody battle ended more quickly than expected. Faced with the evidence we had gathered and the children's clear preferences, Elizabeth's lawyer advised her to accept a joint custody agreement with primary physical custody granted to me. She would have the children on alternating weekends and one evening a week for dinner, with additional time during school holidays. On the day the divorce was finalized, I sat in the courtroom, watching Elizabeth sign the papers, her face a mask of resignation. Thomas was not present. Their relationship, it seemed, had ended shortly after he lost his job, a fact that surprised me only in its predictability. As we were leaving the courthouse, Elizabeth approached me one last time. "I know you won't believe me, but I'm sorry, Michael, for all of it." I looked at her, at this woman who had once been the center of my world, and felt a complex mix of emotions, anger, sadness, but mostly a deep weariness. "I believe you're sorry it ended this way," I replied, "but I'm not sure you're sorry for the choices that led us here." She didn't argue, which was perhaps the most honest thing she had done in months. "What will you tell the children?" she asked. "The truth," I said, "that we've officially ended our marriage, but not our commitment to being their parents, that we will both always love them, even if we couldn't save our marriage." She nodded, tears filling her eyes. "I do love them, Michael, more than anything." "Then show them," I said simply. Not with words, not with tears, not with dramatic gestures, with consistency, with honesty, with respect for their feelings. And in the weeks that followed, Elizabeth seemed to spiral. Without Thomas, without a job, and with limited access to her children, she began drinking heavily. Several times she showed up for scheduled visits with the children, clearly intoxicated, forcing me to turn her away at the door. One night, about 2 months after the divorce was finalized, I got a call from Olivia. "Michael, I'm worried about Elizabeth," she said, her voice strained. "She's drinking a lot and talking about how she's ruined everything, how she has nothing left to live for." Despite everything, my heart clenched with concern. Has she threatened to harm herself? Not explicitly, but she's in a dark place. I think she needs professional help. I sighed. I'll call her therapist. Maybe they can recommend an intervention or inpatient treatment. She needs more than a therapist, Michael, Olivia insisted. She needs her family. She needs to know she hasn't lost everything. I can't give her what she wants, Olivia. I can't undo the divorce or pretend the affair never happened. You don't have to take her back to show a little compassion, she said sharply. If something happens to her, how will you explain that to your children? The accusation stung, but I refused to be manipulated. Don't put that on me. Elizabeth is an adult responsible for her own choices. I will contact her therapist, but that's all I can offer. I did call Dr. Matthews, Elizabeth's therapist, who thanked me for the information and promised to take immediate action. I thought that was the end of it, that Elizabeth would get the help she needed and eventually find a path forward. 3 days later, at 2:17 in the morning, my doorbell rang. I came downstairs, bleary-eyed and confused, to find 2 police officers on my doorstep. My heart sank. It was a scene all too familiar, too reminiscent of that first night when everything had changed. "Mr. Harrison?" asked the female officer. "Yes," I replied, already knowing something terrible had happened. "I'm Officer Miller, and this is Officer Rodriguez. May we come in? It's about your ex-wife, Elizabeth Harrison." I led them into the living room, grateful the children were asleep upstairs. "What happened?" Officer Miller's expression was gentle but grim. "I'm very sorry to inform you that Ms. Harrison was involved in a single-car accident tonight. Her vehicle went off the road on Lakeshore Drive and struck a concrete barrier." Is she okay?" I asked, though I already knew the answer from their expressions. "She did not survive the accident, sir. The paramedics pronounced her deceased at the scene." I sat down heavily, the news hitting me with physical force. Despite everything that had happened between us, despite the pain and betrayal, I had never wished this kind of harm on Elizabeth. "The initial investigation suggests she was intoxicated," Officer Rodriguez added. "Her blood alcohol level was significantly above the legal limit." "Were any other vehicles involved?" I asked, trying to digest the information. "No, sir, just hers. She was traveling at a high rate of speed when she lost control of the vehicle." They kept talking, explaining procedures and asking if there was someone who could help me notify next of kin, but I barely heard them. My mind raced, thinking of Lily and Josh, of how I would tell them their mother was gone, of how this final, irreversible act would shape their understanding of her. After the officers left, promising to provide more information, I sat alone in the dark living room, overwhelmed by a complex mix of emotions: grief, anger, guilt, and a profound sadness for what might have been. The next morning, before the children woke, I received a call from Olivia. She was devastated, her voice barely recognizable through sobs. "They found a note," she said, "at her apartment. The police gave it to me, but I think you should see it. It's addressed to you and the children." I immediately went to Olivia's house. She handed me an envelope, not meeting my eyes. Inside was a single sheet of paper, scrawled in Elizabeth's handwriting, the letters uneven and slanted, proof of her intoxication, as she wrote. "Michael, Lily, and Josh. I know words can never undo what I did or heal the pain I caused. I've been trying to find a way forward, to rebuild something from the ashes of what I destroyed, but I can't seem to escape the weight of my mistakes. Michael, you were right about everything. Our marriage wasn't perfect, but it was good and real and worth fighting for. I threw it away for something empty and destructive. Thomas never loved me. I see that now. But even if he had, it wouldn't have justified what I did to you and our children. You deserved better than my lies and betrayal. Lily and Josh, my beautiful children, I'm so sorry for the confusion and pain I brought into your lives. You deserved a mother who put you first, who protected you from harm instead of causing it. Please know that my failures as a wife have nothing to do with my love for you. That love was always real and pure, even when my actions didn't reflect it. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even know if I deserve it. But I want you all to know that I see now, too late, what I threw away. The emptiness I feel isn't because I lost a lover or a job. It's because I lost the only things that ever truly mattered. My family, my integrity, your trust. Forgive me for everything. Elizabeth. I read the note twice, then neatly folded it and placed it back in the envelope. The words were an admission, an apology, and a goodbye all at once. They didn't erase what had happened, but they revealed a clarity Elizabeth had never shown in life. Did you know she was this desperate? Olivia asked, her voice hollow. I shook my head. I knew she was struggling, but I didn't realize how deep her despair was. Could we have done more? She wondered, not accusatorily, but with genuine uncertainty. I don't know, I admitted. Maybe. Or maybe this path was set in motion by choices made long ago that couldn't be undone. We sat in silence for a few moments. Two people united only by their connection to a woman who was now gone. How will you tell the children? Olivia finally asked. I took a deep breath. Honestly, gently, but honestly. Telling Lily and Josh about their mother's death was the hardest thing I've ever done. Their reactions were as different as their personalities. Lily broke down sobbing, while Josh went completely silent, his face a mask of shock and confusion. Did she do it on purpose? Lily asked through her tears. I chose my words carefully. The police believe it was an accident caused by her drinking, but she left a note that suggests she was in a very dark place emotionally. Can we read it? Josh asked, his first words since I'd broken the news. Yes, I said. When you're ready. It's for you, as much as it is for me. The days that followed were a blur of funeral arrangements, condolences, and attempts to support my children through their grief. Elizabeth's death transformed her in their eyes, no longer just the mother who had betrayed their trust, but now a tragic figure whose mistakes had led to her destruction. At the funeral, I stood with Lily and Josh, accepting condolences from friends, family, and colleagues who didn't know the full story. Thomas Blackwood did not attend, a small mercy for which I was grateful. As we stood by Elizabeth's grave during the final prayers, I felt Lily take my hand. Dad, she whispered. Are you okay? I looked at my daughter, struck by her concern for me, even in her own grief. I'm focused on you and Josh right now. But you lost someone too, she insisted, even after everything. Her insight brought unexpected tears to my eyes. Yes, I did. I lost the woman I married, the mother of my children, the future we planned together. And even though things ended the way they did, it's still a loss. Josh, overhearing our conversation, moved closer. Do you think she really meant what she wrote in the note? That she was sorry? I put an arm around his shoulders. I think so. I think in those last days, she saw things clearly for the first time in a long time. I wish she'd seen them sooner, he said, his voice cracking, before everything fell apart. Me too, buddy, I replied. Me too. In the months that followed, we found a new rhythm to our lives, shaped by loss, but not defined by it. The children and I attended grief counseling, both individually and as a family. We talked about Elizabeth often, remembering the good times, acknowledging the painful end. One evening, about 6 months after the funeral, I found Lily sitting on our back porch looking at old family photos on her phone. You know what's weird? She said as I sat down beside her. I'm starting to forget what her voice sounded like. I nodded. That happens. But you'll never forget who she was to you. The good parts along with the rest. Do you think she ever found peace? In the end? It was a question I had asked myself many times. I hope so. Her note suggested she found clarity, if not peace. Sometimes understanding our mistakes is the closest we can come to making peace with them. Lily rested her head on my shoulder. I miss who she was before all of this. Me too, I admitted. But I'm grateful for what we still have. Each other. As we sat there in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over our backyard, I reflected on the journey that had brought us here. Elizabeth's betrayal had shattered our family, and her death had complicated our healing. But amid the pain and loss, we had found resilience, truth, and a deeper appreciation for the fragility of human connection. My wife cheated and ended up in the hospital. Everyone asked me to forgive her, but my journey was never about forgiveness. It was about truth, about protecting my children, about finding a way forward with dignity and integrity. In the end, Elizabeth faced the consequences of her actions in the most tragic way. And while I would never have wished that outcome on her, I learned that some ruptures cannot be mended, some trust cannot be rebuilt, and some choices alter the course of our lives forever. But I also learned that even after such profound loss and betrayal, life goes on. And with enough courage and honesty, so can we.